Hi, it's the Nerdy Nifty Nana, and today I'm going to talk about two books. One is called Different, Same, Heather Tekavec and Pippa Curnick, and the other one is the Metropolitan Museum of Art's book called Museum ABC. So both of these books are about observation and comparison and categorizing. Very fundamental critical thinking skills. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take a look at these two books. We'll start with this one, Different, the Same. So this book is from 2017, Kids Can Press. The publisher says it's for children ages 2 to 6. And this is a book that I really like. Each page is set up with 4 creatures. You're given their names and you are told one thing about them, and things that you are told about them are different. So they show the differences between the 4 creatures. Here, in this case, the zebra, I gallop. The bumblebee says, I fly. This lemur says, I leap. And the tiger says, I prowl. So each of them move in different ways. But then the question for your child can be, what is it about these animals that is the same? We've heard about how they're different. How are they now the same? So that's something you can talk about with your child. You can look at all of these animals and discuss some of the things that they have the same and some that are different. They all have eyes, for example. That might be one thing your child will say. The answer from the book's perspective is, look closer now, we all have stripes. So then you can go and point out to your child, yes, stripes. Here we see stripes, stripes, and stripes. You're basically verifying what you have been told. And that's another step in critical thinking, is finding ways to verify or validate the information you're provided. So there's a whole bunch of pictures like this in this book, and it's all very, very beautifully illustrated. Lovely colors, quite a variety of animals. When you get to the end, there is a couple of pages, and I'm missing a whole bunch of pages here, so you can see that there's lots and lots of images to look at. But right at the end, there's this double page. All of the animals are together on one page, and it does have some additional questions here. How many animals can you find that have spots, have webbed feet, are furry, have beaks, and so on? So different ways to look at similarities and differences between animals. There's also a very little section at the back that also basically ties together some of the ways that animals are different from each other, or in some cases similar to each other, because they share these common characteristics such as scales, fangs, wings, horns, shells. But this little section also tells you about some of the functionality that goes along with those different forms, and it helps explain and bring that very basic concept to your children's attention. Once again, the relationship between functionality and form. So this is a great book, one of my favorites right now, Different, Same. The other one we're going to look at today is the Metropolitan Museum of Art, their ABC book. This is also a book really good for observation and also for comparison and to some extent categorizing. So here, for example, we have A is for apple, and then a page with 4 images. These are all from pieces of art, famous pieces of art. And for each of those pieces of art, there is a little explanation at the back of the book that tells you what each of those apples, what each of those paintings are called, and who did them, and the time frame, and other sort of basic information. So for those who like those kind of extra bits of information in a book, we certainly have it here. So once you're on this page, A is for apple, you and your child or grandchild can look at these pictures and say, well, what do they have in common? In what ways are these apples the same? How do we know an apple is an apple? we're going to look at the round shape. We're going to look at the fact they have stems. They're very tiny on this particular one. There might be some discussion around how the colors are a little bit different. There's green, there's yellow, there's red apples, so it's kind of harder to go by color alone when you're classifying an apple. But given that they are all round and they all have this little stem, what are some of the differences between them? And so that's when you might talk about color, you might talk about size, the size of the apple. If you weren't just looking at a picture, you might also talk about some apples are sweet and some are sour and some are crisp and some are softer. So there's many ways to look at and describe an apple, and you can go through that with your children. So lots of opportunities here. There's lots of pictures on every page has 4 pictures, 26 letters. So you do the math. It's like hundreds of pieces of art. So your child is getting introduced to art, classical art, and some modern art, and at the same time, learning some of these basic skills that form the basis for critical thinking. So I definitely recommend both these books. I think they're both worthwhile and will be a part of your child's library for a long time, because there's a lot. The pictures are very detailed and varied. There's a lot to look at and a lot to discuss.